Hi everyone, Roshan here with Be a Roshan, and welcome to part 3 of the multi-part series Journey of the Soul. So in the first two videos I talked about the origin of our soul, the structure of our soul, and in this video I want to talk about the experiences of the soul. So when a soul decides to incarnate into a body, a physical body, the soul decides that it wants to go through a list of experiences and a list of things that it wants to experience, and a list of things it wants to do, and a list of karmas it wants to clear. So there are three basic things that the soul wants to do in a particular lifetime. Now, the list of things that it wants to experience could be things, for example, like living in a certain country as opposed, for example, living in a desert as compared to living on a tropical island, living in a cold country as opposed to living in a hot country. It wants to experience things like bungee jumping, traveling, experiencing different cultures, and all the things that come with that sort of experience. It also wants to experience it also wants to do certain things. Now, what it wants to do is probably work, do some kind of work that helps it grow, or it could be building something, creating something, being an artist, being an architect, being an engineer, being a doctor to help people, being a healer to help people, being a chef, being all of this is something that the soul wants to do, or it's part of the life experience that the soul wants to live through. And then finally, the soul comes with a list of karmas that it wants to clear. So now karma is a little more complex, as in the soul has, at least every soul or every person who's living at this point in time has had at least 200 odd past lives, some more, some less. But in those 200 or more or less 200 lifetimes, we've come across many people in those lifetimes. We've come in contact with many people during those lifetimes, and inevitably we've either done something to harm them or they've done something to harm us in the process. And in doing so, we've incurred karma, or those other people have incurred karma. And one of the things that the soul wants to release at this point in this lifetime is a certain amount of karma. And the way to do that is through, or the way to undo its own negative karma is through suffering. Suffering is one of the experiences that a soul wants to experience in this lifetime. As opposed to all of the highs of life, it also wants to experience the lows of life, because the highs and the lows bring contrast to each other. For example, happiness is a high and sadness is a low. And you can't know happiness entirely unless you've experienced sadness. You can't experience or know light unless you've seen darkness or experienced darkness. So all of these experiences are part of the life experience that the soul wants to go through. Suffering also helps the soul grow, and as a soul body, so the mind body spirit connection needs to grow, and suffering helps growth. Suffering helps burn karma. Pain is another area that the soul wants to experience, and there are different kinds of pain that the soul wants to go through. And so from a soul perspective, all of these experiences are equal experiences. None of them is better than the other, none of them is good and the other bad. There's absolutely no judgment in this, in experience. All of it is part of the life experience. Now, why does suffering help burn off karma? Well, if you've harmed someone, the consequence of that needs to be taken on by you. So, if you weren't able to face the consequence in that lifetime, then it would be postponed for another lifetime. But it's always there. It's always there because you need to pay for what you did. And that was one of the conditions that Source agreed to, and we all agreed to before coming into this incarnation or into this reality. So, karma is a given in the third dimensional reality. So, there's another aspect to this whole suffering, and some people who incarnate into life, into this reality, go through a life of suffering, a whole life of suffering. And that can be because either the soul decided that it wanted to go through life that way, or there may be some other reasons behind it, or maybe the soul wants to burn off some karma. It is not necessary that everyone who's undergoing a life of suffering, of utter suffering, has decided to do so. There are many, many reasons behind it, but one of the reasons could be that the soul has agreed to it, or the soul has agreed to it because it wants to burn off some karma, a lot of karma. Life of suffering is also because the soul wants to grow. So certain amount of growth needs to happen for the soul to mature, and hence it needs to go through that suffering. Now, there are some children who are born in suffering, or who have to undergo suffering while they are very young. And these are children who are physically, mentally, or emotionally challenged. One of the reasons why the soul decides to choose a body like that is because the soul either wants to do one of the many different purposes that I just explained. It either wants to burn off some karma of its own, so undergo a life of suffering, childhood of suffering. It either wants to experience life in that way. So, for example, a child who has no hands, no legs, and it's a very extreme form of life, or an extreme way of life. And it could be possible that the soul just wants to experience life like that, or the soul wants to burn off some karma through that experience, or the soul will sacrifice its own one of its lifetimes to help the parents burn off their karma through their suffering and their pain and suffering. Yeah. So the parents, in loving and caring for this child, will burn off some karma, will ascend quicker or faster because of their love and the suffering that they're going through. So that is another aspect of the soul wanting to experience life and doing things in life. All of the experiences that we are going through are all completely valid. Soul wants to experience everything that it can, and it wants to do as much as it can in this lifetime, and so we need to allow that to happen. In order to allow this to happen, we need to be aligned with it. And the way we can be aligned with it is by going within and trying to figure out what we're supposed to be doing and why we are going through certain forms of suffering and how we should be living our lives more fully. So this is end of part 3 of Journey of the Soul, and I'm going to create another video, or maybe a couple of videos, to discuss in further detail about purpose and the purpose of the soul. So stay tuned and we look forward to seeing you again. Much love and light to all of you. Be a light, be a Roshan. If you have any questions, do leave them in the comments and I'll try and answer them. Have a great day. Bye bye.